my name is Patrick Cook. Welcome to another time lapse of a Mandelbulb 3D project. So what I wanted to do with this project is I want to go for an interpolate of two formulas. And I'm thinking that the amazing box that is interpolated with the Menger3 should be very interesting. The Menger formula is somewhat structured, as is the amazing box. So what I'm thinking I'm going to get from this is kind of a structured, well, here we go. So here we have the structure that is beginning to come out as I manipulate the formula properties for both the Menger3 and the amazing box. All right, so that's looking pretty good. All that orangey type stuff, that is clipping that's going on. Now, you notice here I have to keep going down to this FOV setting because you keep losing it when you pull it in, when you pull the parameters in from the main. So here I'm looking for a design that would be an interesting animation fly-through. I don't want something that is too organic. I don't want a whole lot of flowing lines. I really am looking for a structure. And I'm looking for a structure that has a pattern, holes, things that I can fly through. Okay? Now, so far, I have not adjusted any of the coloring. I'm not concerned with the coloring just yet. What I'm doing right now is I'm going for the pattern, the structure. Now what I just did is I eliminated the color. Because when I eliminate the color like that, I feel that I'm better able to look at the contrast. All right, so I just simply used a built-in color palette, which effectively removes most of the color. So here I'm just looking around, I'm using the navigator to adjust my position, and I'm looking for some different scene points of view to work on the pattern. I don't want a pattern that has too many details, but yet I want a pattern that is interesting at all different angles, ideally. I'm not too much concerned with, you see the blue area there? I'm not concerned with that because that effectively is the background. I just did a quick save. All right, and I'm back to looking around. I'm seeing whether or not this pattern that I've selected holds up pretty good. You notice that I went down there and I adjusted the FOV and to at a higher number, so that there's more pattern within the view of the camera, within the z-axis. All right, now I'm going to start playing around with some color, and I'm looking for a color that highlights this structure, this building-like pattern. And I'm feeling, well, probably if I had some sort of a cement-like color, that should be interesting. Now, what I'm finding is that there's not a whole lot of color along the z-axis. So you'll notice here the color picker that's on our far left is the predominant color. So I'm sort of kind of stuck with maybe one color. You notice I put red in there and the red doesn't show up anywhere. So here I'm discovering that the color palette is not very deep in terms of the z-axis. Okay, so now I'm going to experiment with mapping. I'm going to see if I can map a color and a design onto the graphic. I'm concerned though with mapping when you animate across a color mapped surface, you tend to get a lot of color variations or bands that will sweep across the animation, and they just simply don't look good. So I'm leery of using a color map, and as you'll notice here, I turned the color map off and I went back to the standard diffuse color methodology, because I don't believe a color map is going to work in this particular case. So here I'm looking for a good option for the fog. Now what I'm really trying to do is to enhance the background, the shadows. I really want the viewer to be able to see down in those holes. But I don't want the holes to be so badly lit that they become distracting. But I do want detail down in those holes, those pits, whatever you want to call them. So here I'm really fussing with the dynamic fog in order to get a good background that's going to work for this particular animation. All right. So now I'm turning my attention to the ambient color, and I just went down the navigator to change location to see whether or not my ambient and the ambient depth will hold up in various scene positions. Okay. All right, so there's a little bit of ambient shadow, a quick save, back to the navigator. All right, and I've changed the position. I'm trying to see whether or not everything's holding up. All right, there we go. So I think I've got a pretty good background. Now I went back to the Mandelbulb object, the the diffuse coloring, and I'm looking for a coloring that is more consistent with a structure, a building. Cement. I don't want this to be a garish color because you've got a lot of dark areas. Those shadows are extremely important. So I don't want the color of the Mandelbulb object itself to be so intense that it overwhelms the shadows. With the shadows, you get a sense of depth, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm using the shadowing for depth, or I should say for a simulation of depth. All right, so I'm going back and forth between the navigator, looking for different scene positions, and then I adjust the dynamic fog and the ambient the ambient light in order to accentuate the depth. I want the viewer to be able to see some of the details down in the depth. Now I'm just using the Windows magnifier to look around and see whether or not the quality is good. I'm making a couple adjustments in the DE stop. I'm looking for white dots, which would indicate oversampling. And I'm also concerned about having a decent render time because I'm going to be rendering thousands of these frames. All right. So I think the DE stop of 0.5 and the race step multiplier of 0.5 looks pretty good. Back to the coloring and the lighting, I'm just kind of fussing around with a little bit, trying to do some tweaks. Green isn't going to work. I don't want it to be I don't want the color to be too dark. All right, now back to the magnifier, and I'm seeing some issues. The object tends to start to break up. All right, and there's some white dots in there. So I think that the DE stop is close. I think it's a good compromise. I don't want to have minutes and minutes long to render each of these frames. So back to the navigator. Now I'm looking for a new scene. All right, and in this case, I'm trying to bring in a lot of the background to see how the background holds up. I want some detail way off in the distance, and that's what I've achieved here. So that's pretty good. All right, so now I'm moving the camera. I'm walking it forward, walking it back, left and right, sliding, and looking for another position. And I want to see, again, whether or not my coloring, the shadowing, and the DE stop hold up pretty good. They seem to be in pretty good shape, although the image is too dark, but I'm going to deal with that in a little while. All right, so here is a plain background. It's a nice place to start. So do a quick save. Now I've powered up the animator. All right, and I'm going to do the animator save as a first initial go. I'm picking my first frame. There we go. Got my first frame, a keyframe in there. Now I'm going to increase the FOV, and I'm going to draw the camera back, increase the FOV, draw the camera back a little bit. What I'm trying to do here is to start with a fairly solid color for the background. All I'm doing right here is I'm just testing these first 6 keyframes to see whether or not I've achieved what I was looking for as I increase the SOV, the FOV, in order to get a good background. You see how the background kind of folds in there, okay, as the camera looks down. All right, so those are good. All right, now whatever adjustments I made in the lighting, I just applied to all of the keyframes using the animator post-processing feature. All right, so now it is time to make some keyframes. So I'm going to move forward, and I'm just going to look right, and I'm going to tilt a little bit. I'm going to do kind of a forward-moving banking churn. That's what I'm doing here. All right, keyframe it a little bit more, forward. Always keep moving forward. Otherwise, you've got your camera that's just sitting there twisting in space, but you're not moving forward. You're not moving along a lateral, line. All right. So, all right, here we go. So I'm just doing a nice twisty turn. That too much turn, backed it off a little bit straight. Now I'm going straight. Now I want to know what I got. So I push that up to main, and I've got a pretty good idea what it looks like. I like it, so I'm going to save the animation of the keyframe sequence. Good. All right, now I'm figuring out what am I going to do next. And I'm not actually keyframing anything. I'm just looking around. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go get that last keyframe and pull it back in, and then continue keyframing from there. I'm still just looking around. Okay. All right, I got to keep fixing that FOV, that far plane. Okay, so here we go. So now I'm back into creating. All right, good. All right, now what I'm doing is I'm going to do a preview of all of the keyframes that I have from keyframe number 26. Now I abandoned that because I pretty much saw what I wanted. I was more concerned about that starting that churn. All right, so back to keyframing. There we go. All right, I'm going to move forward, and I'm looking up, and then I apply the keyframe. Move forward, look up, tilt a little bit, apply the keyframe. Now, I didn't like those last keyframes, so I just went in there. I just killed them. I didn't like where it was going. I felt that I was kind of heading into kind of a wall, a dead end, if you will. Okay, I got to keep fixing that far plane. Every time you pull something in from the main, that far plane gets the value of the far plane gets lost, and you got to keep resetting it. All right, so here we go. So now I'm just doing a straight forward flight. All right, but now I'm targeting to go right in between those objects. So I'm doing a forward, look down, forward, look down, forward, look down, forward, look down. All right, now there we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right in between those Mandelbulb objects. I'm going to fly right between them, and I got to make small minor adjustments as I move forward. Otherwise, you get, if you don't keep it kind of small, the small movements, you tend to get jerky and you throw off the speed and it doesn't look good. You'll notice over there on the animator that I have an in-between setting of 100. That's over there just to the right of the processing's button. Now, all right, I'm indicating here with my mouse that I'm going to shoot for that little hole. All right, so here we go. So I'm going to move forward. Always move forward. Move forward, look right, move forward, look right, move forward. Okay, look forward, look right, and I'm just aiming. I'm lining the flight path to head right into that hole. There's a quick save. All right. I was saving the animation of the keyframe sequence. All right. So I'm still aiming for that hole. I'm still moving forward. Now we're really getting into the graphic. Shooting for that hole. Small left, right, look up and down, and adjustments. You don't want to overdo it. You don't want to have big adjustments with your keyframes unless that's you're going for. Now I don't want to have any collisions, so I'm going to walk forward. I'm going to look up a little bit, then I'm going to apply the keyframe. Back up to main, see what I'm working with, see how it's going. All right, and there's a quick save of my my animation. You'll notice that when I save my animations, I'm giving it a version number, and I'm also indicating the keyframe number that I'm at. If I need to revert, because I flew into a dead end or something, I can reopen that last animation, that M3A file, and resume from there. Push it up to my main to see what I have in a higher detail image. Now I'm going to fly underneath this structure here. I've got to be careful that I don't collide with it. All right, and there we go. So forward, keyframe, forward, keyframe, forward, keyframe, just like that. You don't want to make huge moves. You want to do small moves. Again, my in-between frames is 100. You want to do small moves so that you don't throw your speed off. All of a sudden, you're flying along, and all of a sudden, zip, and that's what will happen if your moves are too big. All right, so now I just pulled up the image again. It's too dark. I got to work on that, but there's a way to do that. All right, I'm going to do that towards the end. Right now, I'm interested in the flight path. I'm going to shoot for that little blue area up there. All right, and so there we go. So move forward, look up, forward, up, okay, there's a little turn now. I'm going to rotate in. I'm going to rotate right through that into that blue area. But I got to get the camera so that that blue area is horizontal. That's what I'm doing. Move forward, 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 forward. There we go. Nice series of keyframes. Okay. All right. Now I am going to back off on the far plane because what I want to do is end my animation so that I've got a nice, effectively blank screen that I can put titling and credits up. So I have completed my animation sequence. All right, I've got, what do I got there? I got 148 keyframes, and I think this is going to give me a very nice animation. Now what I'm doing right here is I'm doing a very small preview of all of the keyframes. Now I just cut that, and I cut all that time out. That probably took, I don't know, maybe 50 minutes to render this small one, so I just cut and resumed. So here we're coming up on the end of our small preview. You'll notice that the preview down there is a downscaling of 5. I am looking for the flight path. I know it's too dark. I'm looking for a flight path, and I'm watching for any collisions that I might have on, with the Mandelbulb graphic. That's looking pretty good. Oh, that right there was not good. I kind of stalled midair. All right, but that can be fixed. There we go. So now now we dive into it, but we don't hit anything. We want to try to not actually hit any object. And if you do, it's no big deal. It flies by pretty quick. So here we're kind of looking up. We keep moving forward. The key to this whole thing is to keep moving forward. All right. So there we go. A nice shot. We're going to kind of fly out into the open. This is where I'm going to do all the credits and the end. And that's the animation. All right. Now, obviously, everything you're looking at right here is all sped up because this is a time-lapse video. All right. So this is not actually the speed at which my final animation is going to run. All right. Now, there's a couple things I'm not happy with. I'm mostly not happy with the darkness of the picture. So I'm going to get in here and work on that. Now here I'm going for the ambient light right now. Again, I want to try to maintain those shadows, those darker areas. They're critical to this particular animation because I don't want to be losing all of my depth. So I'm really working to maintain the dark areas, but yet not so dark that there's no detail, that it's all black down in there. All right, now I'm looking for some hints as to how I can improve the DE stop, or in other words, the quality. All right, so back to my ambient, okay, and also my dynamic shadowing. I'm trying to brighten the Mandelbulb object structure without throwing off my background. All right, so a little bit of experimentation with the DE stop, in other words, the quality. I'm looking for a good compromise between the quality and the brightness. I don't want to make it so bright that it's overwhelming. If I make the Mandelbulb object very, very bright, I tend to lose the value of the shadows. Now, all I'm doing here is I'm just pulling keyframes at random and loading them up into the main so I get a bigger picture, and then I can adjust my my colors. And I'm looking for a really good compromise between the DE stop, in other words, the quality, and the lighting. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to apply the DE stop and the ray step multiplier to all of the keyframes. All right, now I'm going to check. So there it is. That keyframe got the DE stop of 1.2. That's good. That keyframe, that got a 1.2. Good. Now let's see if I can brighten up the picture. Work on the gamma a little bit. All right, I'm going to apply all that lighting to all of the keyframes using the animator's post-processing feature. There I go again. This time I'm actually making a little bit more adjustment on the DE stop. I don't want a DE stop that is so low, because that tends to give me oversampling or it damages the quality. I don't want the DE stop to be too high, because that would tend to make the picture soft. Okay? So somewhere in there for this particular Mandelbulb object, there is a sweet DE stop and ray step multiplier. And somewhere in here, there's going to be a good compromise between the background and the foreground, in other words, the darkness and the lightness. I think I'm probably pretty close to a decent background. All I'm doing right here is I'm just experimenting with the colors to see whether or not I could get something interesting for the background. Pink and red ain't going to work, so I abandoned that. I went back to more of a gray. So it's okay if my background is dark. I'm okay with that. I don't want it black, so I just put a little bit of blue into there. Okay? All right. I have got to a point where I'm happy with the lighting and the coloring, and now it's time to render the images. I'm going to go for a anti-alias of 2, all right, to give me a better quality. And there we go. So put in my width and my height, get ready, make sure everything's okay, all right, and then save it as a final, and then start rendering. All right, so let's analyze this animation. Okay, well, it starts off pretty good, things are very crisp and clean, good detail, good flight, nice and steady. There we go. We're going right between. Oh, that's nice. Okay, the animation is nice and smooth. However, we're getting some twinklings that are showing up here, and I'm not happy with that. The background, it's too blue. I should go back and I should fix that. It's too blue. I don't want it to be black, but I don't want it to be blue either. Fortunately, there's a way to be able to fix that easily. All right, so nice flight. We're not colliding with any surfaces of the Mandelbulb object itself. That's good. And we shouldn't be slowing down right here. But it's almost acceptable. All right, a nice banking turn, beautiful. A banking turn does a really nice job of bringing other Mandelbulb objects into the scene gracefully, smoothly. I like that. All right, again, we're not colliding with anything. This is good. And we're staying close to the Mandelbulb object, which gives it a lot of kind of a sense of mystery, of almost daredevil flying through this Mandelbulb massive object. I don't like the twinklies. It appears that is related to shadowing. It looks like it's failing to render properly the areas of the Mandelbulb object that are in shadows. I think I can fix that. But this is how we learn. So this Mandelbulb animation is 14,800 frames. This is running at 60 frames per second. So we got a nice smooth action. Here we go. Whoa, nice. Okay, oh, a little bit of collision right there. That's not good. A little bit of clipping. All right, so I should fix that. But that was a nice transition into a scene where there's kind of like a ceiling that you're flying under. Unfortunately, we did get that clipping, and it passed pretty quickly, but I think I would go back and fix that. So this is 14,800 frames. This animation required 2 fairly high-end computers to render. It took about maybe 26 hours, I believe, to render. It was network rendering, so I had 2 PCs rendering simultaneously. So nice flight, beautiful animation, smooth. One problem, all that glittering, it makes this a reject. I need to go fix that, find a way to fix that glittering. I don't like it. The background is too dark. Need to find a way. I don't want to make the background totally dark, black. However, I don't really like the dark, deep blue. All right, so the animation's coming into a nice scene. I didn't like the way that that background suddenly popped in, pops out again, pops back in. That's not realistic. So I need to work on the background. And we can see here in the lower right-hand corner, we see the glittering, and I do not like this. So, but I could cut that off. So that, folks, is an animation, and this is how we learn. All right. There was a couple issues with this. It was the glittering, which appears to be a shadowing problem. The Mandelbulb is failing to properly render the shadowed areas. I think if I made the shadows darker, we might be okay with that. It might fix it. There was one point we were clipping. That's a minor fix. All in all, this is a good start, and those are fixable issues. Okay? This is how we learn. Well, I went back and I made some modifications to the keyframes. I was mostly concerned with the shadowing, and there was a few areas that we were actually clipping. That is, just getting too close to the Mandelbulb object. So this is 14,800 frames that have been re-rendered. Man, this was a tough project. This was a tough one. The background is very dark, black. I could use this black background for a star field, which I think would be pretty cool. All right. The movement is pretty smooth. The shadows are pretty good, but the shadows tend to kind of wander. And there is Mandelbulb objects that are casting shadows on other Mandelbulb objects. So, it's not perfect. But this was a really, really tough animation because we had to move through it. I wanted to get close, but I didn't want to actually collide with anything, but I wanted to get close to the object. The movement is pretty smooth for the most part. There's a couple places that definitely could be better. There's a couple places where it tends to slow down in just ahead of a turn. Not really totally realistic. Oh, now here's a point right here. It just seems to be wavering in space. I don't really like that. That probably could be handled with by doing some video editing work. Ideally, the animation is smooth, but a little bit of clipping just went by. Well, it's all in all, it's pretty good. Okay, now right here, I got in trouble because I actually had clipping, and I went in and I tried to correct a couple keyframes to get the camera to not clip. But what I did is I moved the camera slightly to the left and down, and you saw it. I got kind of a wavering. So this just is an illustration of how difficult it is to go in there and fix just a couple keyframes, because a keyframe is in an animation. A keyframe is very dependent upon the previous keyframes. A little bit of glittering in here. Could have done better. The depth is very nice. The shadows are the shadowy areas are very nice here. All right, we have a nice smooth fly through in between the Mandelbulb object. Pretty good. So this animation needs more work, but this was a very, very tough project, and I didn't get it totally right, but I can always go back and I can always fix those things until I'm happy. All right. So a good learning experience, tough project, not too bad, not too bad, but I think we're going to call it quits on this particular time-lapse project. Thanks for joining me. I hope you learned. I did. Take care.